There's a really big one.
That?
No. No, there's a big. Oh, he's down in the crack.
Oh, that!
Stop.
I promised the students last year, once we hit 100 subscribers, that we were going to build a hot drink station.
And we're on a hunt for a really good table.
We need a table for the lab to put the coffee maker. So
This table. No.
I think it's a bit too big. I don't know. I don't think that's quite what we need.
actually, this one right here.
I don't think that's gonna work really well. I don't think so.
So right now what we're doing is we're looking for a table in the place underneath the warehouse, or underneath the cafeteria. It's kind of a storage area.
Yeah, see, but that's kind of cafeteria-ish.
You guys have something with shelves.
Yeah, exactly. But nice to have some shelves on it so we can put our coffee and things on the shelves. Cool bike. That's neat.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
That's-
It's perfect.
That looks pretty cool. Look at those shelves.
It's IKEA.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty cool.
I think it's, gonna be perfect.
I think it'll be wonderful.
Yeah. Pick this thing up and.
Whoa, we have a whole, that's from IKEA. Those are worth a lot of money.
Oh my goodness, how do you guys know? Because I have one.
Yeah.
So basically what we did was we set up this manifold, which the water is going to flow through a pump that'll pump water through this tubing into the manifold. And then each of these tubes goes into an octo-home, and that'll make it so that each octopus will have its own little self-contained box. They'll each have a red water bottle in there and a rock. And then these pumps help make sure that there's fresh water flow through each of the octo-homes. So yeah, we just basically set up one of the tanks, which will house 5 octopuses.
We are setting up the 2 tanks that are going to be out here
In the beach lab.
in the beach.
In the beach lab.
And
What are in these tanks?
so we're going to be putting 5 octopuses in each tank.
10 octopuses.
And 10 octopuses total.
Look at your
And
math.
currently these tanks have been sitting for a full year. So we're gonna put a little seawater in and then run them for a bit and then empty it to flush them out. And then fill them up again and start bubbling and taking periodic pH samples to see what we can get the pH down to with super intense bubbling. Bubbles!
Bubbles! Okay, cool.
So right now we're setting up one of my 2 labs. This is going to be the thermal gradient lab. So what we're going to have here is we're going to have a warm reservoir and a cold reservoir, which are going to be made using some coolers. And those coolers are going to have several components. They're going to have an inflow valve to our main holding tank. And for those of you who haven't seen it actually, let's go out here and take a look at the main holding tank before I explain how the system is going to be set up. So here is the main holding tank for the thermal gradient. Wow, there's a lot of valves on here. What are all these for? So what this allows us to do is we're going to have warm water coming in one end and cold water in the other. And in each of these valves, we can not only control how much input is coming from each cooler, but we can also control how fast the flow rate is going into the main holding tank itself. So the idea is we're going to start with really cold water on one side, and then it's going to work its way up in temperature to warm water on this other side. Now the overall goal, which we haven't quite achieved yet, is to keep a steady thermal gradient over a period of several hours. And we're still working out some kinks with that. We're going to set the holding tank on these bookshelves here. Then we're going to have the 2 water reservoirs, which are going to drain water. And these are going to be set up higher, probably about, my goal is 1.5 to 2 feet above. Now you might ask, what happens to the water once the thermal gradient fills up? We actually have 2 outflows which are going to go into this bucket. One water here to return to the one bucket here to return to the warm water, and then another bucket over here to return to the cold water. We will have a chiller hooked up to the cold water gradient to keep it cold, and we'll have some water heaters in the warm water reservoir. So then what's going to happen is as water flows out, we have these really handy dandy things called a flow switch. And what these do is as the water level rises, it turns on, and a pump will go and drain the water until it turns off. And then the bucket will begin to fill again, and then this will turn on the pump, and it will drain up back into the cooler. So that's just a brief schematic, and Taylor and I are going to be working on unpacking today. We'll see how far we get.
We done set up the lab,
One of them.
and this still need to put more stuff in, but this is the general layout. Woo!
Yeah.
So one of the key measurements in measuring CO2 in seawater is to measure the alkalinity of the seawater. This essentially gives us how many other things are in the water other than the CO2 that is affecting the pH, in short. So that actually is kind of a relatively complicated measurement to take. And we have one lab room that's just set aside just for making that measurement. We just got the titrator set up, and now I'm going to be going into the pH probe and the recirculating chiller. And unfortunately, this is a very, like our other lab spaces is here, this is a very dark and small room. Just kind of illustrate what it's like. This is a former dark room. You have like the 2-door system, the light trap where you come in, and then there's a second door, and it's very small and dark in here. We've been using this now as the alkalinity lab for 3 years. This is a 3rd year now, and it's kind of nice. When I was a student that came as a student to Rosario, actually this wasn't really used for anything but storage, and then there was a phone right here. At that time, 10 years ago, there's like very little cell phone service here on the campus, and so students would come in here to make their calls. Okay, now here it is. Titration lab assembled. Woohoo! I can start running the students ragged in here now.
Achoo!